Welcome to Circle Podcast, brought to you by Circle Sanctuary, one of the oldest nature spirituality churches in the United States, connecting people of nature-centered paths around the world. Join us throughout the week for a variety of shows discussing various topics, celebrating the divine in all of its forms through nature worship, rituals, education, and building bridges of community. Welcome to Urban Unwitches, a podcast to educate, inform, and expand the pagan community. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches, and listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. You can also join us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches. Now, back to the show. I'm crocheting a hat. It's a witch's hat. But it's for the Sun King at Yule.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
That's why it's bright yellow, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get some kind of sun pen and stick it on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets wire to help it keep its shape. So I've been doing that.
I was going to ask about that.
And then the Pagan World Congress has finally told me when I'm going to teach, which is nice because I was worried they weren't going to tell me. But I got an email today that said, can you teach at this day and time? And I said, yes, I can teach at that day and time. So that's what I've been getting onto. Looking again at my thing. I've been a little bummed. I'm feeling very like I haven't done enough. I'm just, I feel like I don't do enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
Honestly, Dia, you suffer from something that I, for the last 10 years or so, have been calling competent priestess syndrome. The really good ones have this issue. And this propensity to, because when you're leading, when you're a charismatic person, when people are learning from you, there's an energetic exchange, but you're also using yourself as fuel, your love, your passion for what you're doing, all of that. And there comes this point where how many like really good priestesses do you know? Like go through the Rolodex in your list. People who are just top tier practitioners, top tier teachers. How many of them have autoimmune issues and constant chronic health issues?
Yeah.
Like amongst the really good priestesses I know, I've learned more really hard to pronounce autoimmune disorder words.
Mm-hmm.
Like it took me 3 months to be able to say myasthenia gravis after meeting Tamara. Like it's a repeat thing. How many people have, not even later in life people, but like leaders in the craft have mobility and disability issues when we go to festivals? When you are operating, I think at a certain level, it pulls something, it takes a certain vitality, and the need to do more is at kind of the core of what it means to lead. Like you serve your community and there's always something to do. There's always something more you can do. But in times where your people are threatened, that feeling is kind of higher and it never goes away. Like that back of the mind need to do something to protect your people. And so like I have been feeling that immensely. And every single person I know, coast to coast, is bummed. Like this is awful.
I got up this morning really, but like the energy feels heavy. It's heavy. And I've tried to do like crocheting for me is a self-care thing. If I do that, then I'm not thinking about other things. And so I tried to do that. And I got ready. Tonight is the Circle Sanctuary full moon circle is tonight. And I actually practice what I'm doing. Which is because I have two cameras right here. I have this camera right here, and it points at the desk. So I'm actually going to show how I care for cauldrons.
Okay.
Cauldrons.
And
Yeah.
I have one that needs to be oiled
Hmm.
again, and I'm going to talk about how to do that. What?
I forgot to mention it last time when we were on with Michael.
What?
Costco has cast iron cauldrons. Cast iron cauldrons at
Oh my
Costco.
gosh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I'd never seen it before, but like I just saw a little blurb about it, and I was like, I've got to tell Dia, which of course meant that I immediately forgot to tell Dia because my brain is Swiss cheese on the best of days. Um, yeah,
Well, I hope they still
but
have them when this comes out. That's one of the things we wanted to talk about today. What do you have going on other than me feeling down? Do you have anything going on you want to talk about?
well, yes. Okay, so in truth, I have something I have 43 things. I have a list of things that I could rant about for literally hours. I actually have a friend who he's known me for several years now. He's the reason that I work where I work. He was the one who enticed me to the job. He he has seen older, calmer Kyler. He has never seen Kyler go on a rant. I try not to rant anymore. That was my drug of choice for the better part
Yes.
of 20 years. And
Mm-hmm.
my rants were epic, like Pagan Lewis Black. I would Robin Williams my way through a topic and I would be exhausted afterwards, right? I would just have to,
Right.
take a nap. I am lit tired. Um, we went out to our little local Tex-Mex eatery. And as we tend to do on Friday nights, we have like a little boys' night where we just go out and we kind of unload from the week and all that. He asked the proper series of questions. And 45 minutes later, I come out of the rage-induced fugue state and I had broken down the American financial system from its inception. I legitimately referenced A Wealth of Nations by Thomas More all the way through to the shifting political balance in Florida and how Democrats used to be bad and are now good, and how that changed in the 60s and the financial players that flipped that. It was ridiculous. And his eyes were big, and he was just like, Bubba, how do you have that in your head? And I'm like, neurosis. Like I have that in my head because of neurosis. Like I find a topic and I just absorb everything on it that I can. And I've realized that the urge to rant has been so close to the surface. I am one rant away from potentially getting like a corrective at work because I have no sense of proportion when my brain goes to this place. I think it's like, I have an autistic friend who will get overwhelmed, like sensory overwhelmed.
Right.
And it's almost like that, like this switch flips and like my higher thinking brain goes away. So I have been reacting to what's happening in the world, and I have desperately tried to unplug from the constant stream of things that are going
Yeah.
on. But I've been unable to do that because again, neurotic. But my wonderful husband has been helping me because he is a saint. He's an angel. I adore him. Like this morning, because he knew that we were podcasting, when he brought me my coffee, he brought the most controversial
Aw.
mug that we could have on screen. I love it. Um, and then other than that, just watching my mom and my niece
Mm,
slowly untangle and
mm-hmm.
relearn how to talk to one another. It's
Mm-hmm.
been it's been wonderful in the most irritating way. But
Right.
it's been wonderful, like
Yeah.
watching somebody leave a bad place into a good place and
Right.
slowly begin to get the feeling of it's safe and all that. And also my mother has done this weird hard swing towards, not weird, now that she's got access to good information, she's done this
Right.
hard swing away from the right tendencies that she always had towards
Right.
the left. And like
Yep.
she's gearing up for World War III, even though, she has like two fake hips and fake knees and fusions in her back and her wrist. She still thinks she's, redneck Annie Oakley, and she's just ready for the hammer to fall. And I'm like, Mom, you live in a senior living facility. Like, if anybody ever tries to take your senior living facility, they will meet more armed resistance than I think they anticipated for the over 65 population.
Right.
But, maybe don't focus on that. You walk in the park. Parks are good. Yeah,
Yes.
there's no violent uprisings in parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to cover a couple of things. The first thing I want to cover is I just want to tell our listeners about the timing of this podcast.
Mm.
So, the reason why you're often hearing us talk about, like right now, we're looking at towards Samhain, but you're not going to hear this podcast until December. And there's a reason for that, and it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the way that the podcasting network puts out its podcasts. So if you haven't noticed, we come out the first and third Thursdays of the month, every first and third Thursday. I have to have the first and third Thursday for the next month on the 10th of the month before. So in November, for November, I just turned in November's podcast, and October's podcasts aren't even finished being out yet. It's just how it works. And so if we sound behind the news cycles, we are behind the news cycles, and we know that. And we just want you to also be aware that we are aware, but there's not a lot we can do about that. It's just how it works for us. And the other thing I've been getting questions about what an unwitch is, so I thought I would tell the story again. The reason we are unwitches is because I told somebody I was going to do some TikToks, and they told me I wasn't witchy enough for TikTok because I don't have that witchy aesthetic. And so I was like, fine, I'll be an unwitch and like and represent unwitches, people who don't have that aesthetic and are still witches, right? There's lots of us.
Mhm.
And so that's where unwitch came from, just so we know. I wanted to point that out. Those were my two public service announcements. Oh, and the last one is we're on Blue Sky at
Oh
Urban
yeah, yeah.
Unwitches.
Mhm.
We're on Blue Sky now. So Blue Sky, I hadn't done Blue Sky before because they had a weird, like only 10 seconds for video, but they've changed that. And so we are now on Blue Sky. So hopefully you can catch us up there and follow us at Blue Sky at Urban Witches. Sorry about that. My chair decided to protest moving. So
So
that's what's going on. And today we're going to talk about safety in the craft. And that's going to cover a lot of topics. It's going to cover current events. It's going to cover general safety in the craft, just generally. And then it's going to talk about history a little bit. So we kind of have a plan. But you know how plans go awry on this podcast if you are a regular listener. So hold on. Who knows what rant we're going to get out of Kyler today. So
I feel like conversations with me are like a conceptual pogo stick. Like you bounce up, you're not 100% sure where it's going to come down. I'm okay with that. Keeps people on their toes. So
I'm sorry, I'm
safety.
writing down conceptual pogo stick so that I can TikTok that shit. Ooh, that stuff.
Oh, Dia, you said a wordy
No, I
dirts.
said the dirty words. You know what's really funny is we had Michael on, and hopefully you will have heard that podcast. We had Michael M. Hughes on, author of
Mhm.
Magic for the
Magic of the
Resistance.
Resistance.
And he asked me if we could curse, and I said yes. And then I promptly went and when I was producing the sound and beeped him.
Did you warn him that you beat him, Dia?
Oh,
Did you warn him? You rope-a-dope that poor
I
man.
just went beep. You can still tell what he said, but there's
Right.
there's this thing when I upload the podcast, I have to check whether or not it's children safe. And they consider children safe, no bad words. And I don't want to check that it's not children safe, right? Because that limits who gets our stuff. So well, and this is not children safe. It says it if it's for mature audiences only. That's what it says.
Right. So it's got to be like a PG-13 rating.
So right. So we're right. So it has to be a PG-13 rating. And we do that. And I don't think anything we've talked about is nothing I wouldn't have talked in front of my son when he was 10ish. I don't think we do anything.
There was the trauma trauma
Yeah, that was
episode.
pretty
That
intense,
one
but
was pretty intense. Yeah.
that was pretty intense. Yeah, but that's not been out yet either. That's,
Oh, I'm so far
that's
behind.
not
I never
out.
know
It
where I am.
actually comes out later this month. But yeah, that was a heavy one. But
You have
anyway,
been
so every
forewarned, listeners.
yeah,
Yeah.
every time I load, I'm like, I don't want to click that. So I have to
Right.
beep things, but I'll beep myself.
So what I'm hearing is if I ever want to bother Dia, I just have to have a really bad mouth. So you have to go through with a fine tooth comb and just beep me every fourth word. Because
Yep.
legitimately, for all of our listeners, I have the mouth of an unrepentant, not entirely sober Irish sailor. I got it from my mother, who now is quite insistent that cursing is bad. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You're flipping the script, and that's not fair. I learned my best profanity from you. So you can't just take it away now that you've refound Jesus. Like you can't do that. That's not fair. Um, and she's like, well, it's not fair, Kyler. God don't like ugly. And I'm like, okay, okay, I'm not giving up profanity. But for you, our listeners, and for Dia not getting carpal tunnel, I have attempted to police my vocabulary. And now I know that I have a passive aggressive way to irritate Dia. And this is like my birthday come early.
Yeah, but the cool thing is I'm working in a new I have that new uh
Program.
software that
Mhm.
Wondershare Filmora by Wondershare or Wondershare by
Mhm.
Filmora. I'm not sure which way it is, but anyway, not an endorsement, but I will say that I used to have to listen to the podcast twice all the way through, once for TikToks, once
Mhm.
to calibrate it to go on the podcast platform. I don't have to do that anymore. I can do it all in one place, and then I can just export the audio. I'm so excited about it. I am so excited that I gained back an hour of my life where I don't have to listen to myself talk again. So,
It's weird. It is jarring to hear yourself speak. Like I knew I'd always sound a little bit like a gay cowboy, but hearing my voice and seeing me on TikTok, that's weird. It's weird to see
oh, people on
myself.
TikTok love you. From
I'm seeing yeah,
Walmart Magneto to
I
the
got in
Angry
so
Swamp
much trouble for
Witch.
that. My mother saw the Walmart Magneto and oh my goodness, did she have opinions? She's like, Kyler, you put that on the internet. Everyone can see it. And I'm like, Mama, it's okay. They loved it. They loved Walmart Magneto. You were making fun of me. And I'm like, you thought a nickel could stick to your forearm because of a vaccine. I'm sorry, you earned it. Yeah. When I talk to her, I sound like I'm from the holla. It's just I can't escape it.
Well, safety in the craft. Where do we want to go first? Do we want to talk
Um,
about do we want to talk about general safety in the craft, or do we want to talk about current events? Because we're bummed because of current events. That's
yeah.
kind of how that is.
Why don't, because I want to put a little caveat before we get started. Why don't we do the Bill of Rights first? Like, let's
Okay.
introduce that to folks because a lot of people
Yeah.
probably haven't heard it, and it's a really
No.
good roadmap. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
this
one of
is
the
a
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
You
Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say you had said this earlier actually of all the things that came out of the 90s that were like pagan and Wiccan related,
Yeah.
a lot of them have not stood the test of time particularly
Mm-mm.
well. Some of them
Mm-mm.
have been so awful they've been downright Cosby in their nature.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one that's really stood up, to the test of time, and it's because I think at its core it's fundamentally sound and it's pretty wholesome and good, and it's about keeping yourself truly safe without being so paranoid that you also miss out on opportunities. Um, so yeah, the caveat that I was going to give before we actually jump into it is, and I surprisingly have to give this spiel a lot at my job. You have a voice inside of you. All of us do. And this voice is sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's whisper soft, sometimes it's so soft it's like it's not even there. But this voice tells you when something is okay or not. And we have gotten very, very good at ignoring this voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that voice is the voice of self preservation. It is the voice of instinct. It's the voice that is fed by the awareness that lives way down deep inside of you, that picks up on all of the nonverbals, on all of the energetics, the part of you that is not your thinking brain, but is deeper and more primal and is very aware of what is happening around you, even if
Mm-hmm.
you're hyper focused on something else. So when you're going through the idea of keeping yourself safe in the craft, if you have this initial like knee jerk reaction of, whoa, this may not be okay, take a moment, take a breath, and explore that because that's coming from somewhere. Now, it may be past trauma, it may be a learned response, but figure out why. If you can't answer why, don't proceed. And anybody
Right.
who pushes you to proceed, they're not as safe as they should be.
Right.
That's my general caveat.
Yep. The Seeker's Bill of Rights was written by Charles Mars, and Charles Mars at one time was part of Hearn's Wood Coven. This was published originally in a publication called The Accord. And basically, Charles Mars felt like seekers had some rights and he wanted to quantify what these are. And these have really stood well the test of time. I haven't changed any of these. They're exactly as he wrote them in 1998. The first one is to verify credentials, the right to verify credentials. And this
Mm-hmm.
used to be a bigger deal. I think the internet has helped this be a, a not as big a issue, right? I think there was a time when without the internet, we would have to take people's word on things. And I know I've told the Starhawk story where this guy was going on and on about how he was trained in Starhawk and by Starhawk, and Starhawk never heard of the guy because evidently more than one person wrote to ask about him.
Yeah.
And that was all we had back then. Right now, if I say I'm a reverend and I'm ordained by Circle, you can go on Circle's website and verify that I'm ordained by Circle because I'm on the list of their ministers. So that's that's verifying my credentials, right? If you want to see my degrees, I can show you those. My degrees from the University of North Georgia. Um, so that's what we're talking about. There used to be a time when people would just go, I'm a third degree. And you would go, well, who trained you? Well, I can't tell you, it's a secret.
Yeah.
And there was not a whole lot you could do about
Yeah.
that. You couldn't, there's no follow up, right? All you could hope is that the person was telling the truth. So that's the right to verify credentials. Do you have anything on that?
So yeah, the whole credentialing thing, if you are like a practicing Wiccan, there's a really amazing book. There's actually two books that I would recommend. They are the biographies of both Doreen Valiente and Gerald Gardner. Secrecy of who initiated you, who trained you, is baked into the very origin story of Wicca. Like Gerald Gardner spun a huge yarn about who initiated him and where his knowledge came from and all that. Now, that is not at all to ixnay the
Right.
legitimacy of Gardnerian training. They started it
Right.
like they Gardner provided the template upon which most of the occult revival in America hinged upon. Like when Wicca got here, everything else blossomed because of that. But yeah, that my teacher is a secret um, was at the very start of the story, and later we've learned that not only was there a little bit of petty in that, there's a little Easter egg in that. A little bit of vengeance that Gerald Gardner exacted from a very unpleasant person who kind of tormented him. But we also learned that he wasn't initiated in the way that he said he was. And doesn't matter. But even if at the very beginning that need for legitimacy is such that people lie, it can happen. And the internet is not foolproof. So definitely
No,
verify credentials.
no, and there's one of the things I always look out for when it comes to this is the unbroken lineage. When they say, I'm a witch from an unbroken lineage, let me tell you who can claim an unbroken lineage. My son. My son can claim an unbroken lineage because he was raised pagan, as well as being exposed to all the other religions I could find. but he was raised pagan. And so he can
Mm-hmm.
say, I have an unbroken lineage. If he has children, then those children will have an unbroken lineage. But the truth of the matter is, until we had people who are second generation and third generation pagan,
Mm-hmm.
um, there was no unbroken lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that there aren't, we talk a lot about Appalachian magic, which is granny magic, that magic that's been handed down person to
Mm-hmm.
person, but they didn't call that magic. And I always say that's an important thing to understand. My
Mm-hmm.
grandmother taught me all kinds of things about being a psychic and herbs and plants and all of that, right? But she would
Yep.
have never ever
Never.
said she was a witch. Never. And I have never claimed that she was one because it would offend her. And I don't want to offend her memory.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's the right to verify. That's my little rant about that. The right to anonymity, and this is something we were going to talk about. This is the right to be involved, but not have this blasted all over the interwebs, not be
Mm-hmm.
doxied, so to speak. And that's becoming more and more important. I have some of my covenants have been reaching out to me and asking, whether or not I think their jobs could be in danger because of some of the things that are happening in the news now. And, um, one of the things that I have told them is now's the time to get a longer chain for your pentacle and tuck it in your
I
bra.
I love that. I have that is lovely. I'm writing that down because that is what a lovely euphemism. I collect those. I collect euphemisms. Some people collect stamps and baseball cards. I don't have enough room to store anything, so I'm going to collect euphemisms.
Okay. So get a longer one and tuck that in. If you're a girl, you can tuck it into your bra. And that way it's not flopping out, but you still have it with you and on you. I can remember that Dick Sells, my teacher, wore one that like the chain hung to his navel. Like he could,
Hmm.
really tuck it in. And he always said it was because you never knew who was going to take offense to that. And so it
Hmm.
was better to keep it out of sight. And then the other thing that I have said is just don't talk about religion at work. If someone brings
Hmm.
up religion, go, that's not appropriate work conversation. I don't talk about religion at work.
Hmm.
Um, sorry. I don't talk about religion at work. I don't do that. And that's the other thing. I mean, I always said that we were part of the Boy Scouts, and part of how we pulled that off was anytime someone brought up religion, we were like, this is not, we don't talk about religion at Boy Scouts. Mm-mm.
Hmm.
We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We talk about the boys and what the boys need.
Hmm.
That's what we're going to talk about. So that's my rant about the right to anonymity. But this is also why people have craft names. As many of you know, my name isn't Dia, but I am also way out of broom closet and always have been.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I was never in the broom closet. And you know what? There's a reason for that. And I don't know that I've ever told you the story, but this is true. After my first initiation, I went to sleep that night. I was at an event and I went to sleep in my tent. And then in my tent, I woke up and looked down and I was naked and I had glowing sigils from the top of my head all the way down through my toes. And I was like, oh my God, I'll never be able to hide this. And then I woke up and went, oh my God, I should never be in the broom closet. Like there's just like I can't fake that. So that's why I've never been in the broom closet.
Yeah, that's so odd. I had a fairly similar experience.
Really?
Oh yeah, when I discovered Wicca literally the first time I was ever on the internet. Like I overheard a word in the hall and I went in and I looked it up and I immediately found I think it was Ashland's Grove or something with one of the spinny GIF pinnacle things with the lightning forking out. We've talked about it before.
Right.
Um, and then, some time went on, and one day I woke up and I realized that I have absolutely no control over my mouth. And if anything is in my head, it falls out of my mouth. And that's when I realized there's no chance of me being in the broom closet because I can't stop talking about the things that interest me. So it wasn't so spiritual. It was just, ADHD, but I woke up one morning and realized I could never be in the broom closet either.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the
I'd love
next
to.
one is the, uh-huh.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say I would love to say it was an active choice, but it usually is not with me.
No, I don't, and I didn't feel like it was a choice. I feel like it was the God saying, you're never
Yeah.
going to be in the broom closet. Just
Hmm.
get used to that. There's something about
And
you that's not going to be able to hide. And so you might as well
hmm
just get out there and be who you are.
yeah, and that's how it be sometimes. Sometimes the gods touch you and you're bright and you're shiny, and
Mhm.
those I call those people lighthouses
Mm,
because they shine that light and they pull others to them, and those are the anchors that make communities. And like I've known you
mm.
long enough, there's no way you won't have a community around you. You pull people in, and it's lovely and healthy and interdependent, and it's like a template for how community should work. It's really beautiful. I've always envied that about you.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. So the next one is the right to financial security. It says seekers shall not be required or coerced to take on financial burdens on behalf of the teacher group. This is
Hmm.
why my group doesn't charge a membership fee. Um, we ask for donations sometimes, but those are always for
Hmm.
actual things like we just bought candles for a ritual. And so we ask for donations. Or sometimes I have and if you have a group, this is what you should do. Go out on the Amazons and put up a, a wish list for your group and then release it to your group and say, these are things we need. So, but this is also just fair warning how we ended up with 2,000 paper plates. Because two people got really excited about giving something to the group, and then now we have more paper plates than I know. Like we'll never buy paper plates again.
Yeah.
But it is how you do that. And
Hmm.
this is also where you don't teach for the craft comes from. And this used to be a really big thing. Like in the 90s, people who taught for the craft, were charged for the craft were really not looked upon fairly. And now I think there's a little bit of difference. Now I think that people
Hmm.
understand there's time and there's effort, and if I go and teach a class, to me that's different than teaching the craft. And I think that's what a
Yeah.
lot of newbies don't understand. Going to a class about witchcraft is not the same as being taught the craft. If you're in my group, I am teaching you actively the craft every time we get together. Every
Hmm.
interaction is deliberately constructed to help further you as a witch because you're part of my group, period, full stop, end of sentence. But if I
Hmm.
go and I just am teaching a class at Mystic South, I'm just teaching a class, right?
Hmm.
I'm not giving you training in being witch. These are two separate things. And one requires kind of consistent and training and ritual and personal time together, and one does not. Yeah, isn't that how you would say that?
Yeah, no, that was really well said. And so I've actually had an experience that directly speaks to this, and it
Mm-hmm.
stayed with me. It kerfuffled me for a while. So I was part of a tradition that love them. They are phenomenal, and they have a very hard rule. The gifts of the gods are free. They offer public classes. They have for, I think, the better part of 50 years now, like truly unbroken weekly classes for decades and decades, right? Well, there's this priestess in the tradition who I'm very good friends with. I adore her. She has all of the subtlety of a battering ram. She works with the Norse, so it stands to reason. Very, very strong opinions, very passionate about literally everything she does. And we both have a love of Norse runes, and I was teaching a pretty intensive workshop. Like this was a six class workshop spread over 6 weeks. It was a weekly class. I rented space. I actually went out and bought a digital projector for this
Mm-hmm.
class. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wanted this to become kind of a regular thing and hoped to kind of farm more interest so that, we could go even deeper in that study of the runes. Well, all of these materials cost money. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was a rehab therapist in Florida. because of the laws there, we couldn't bill insurance. I was not making a lot of money at the time, but I wanted to be able to give this. Now, the runes themselves, gift of the gods. My skill with them, that is something I have created. That is something that I had developed. But when the conversation came up, there was a very immediate knee-jerk reaction because I was charging for them to come in. I had to pay for the space, I had to pay for the study materials, they were getting handouts. Um, the projector was on me just because I'm extra, so didn't factor that into the overhead costs. But like I figured up how much it was going to cost me to put this on
Hmm.
and divvied that up, and there was no element of profit for it for me at all. It was just
Right.
covering my materials.
That's right.
I was donating, yeah, donating my time, all that. And the pushback I got on it was probably the largest disagreement that I ever had with this priestess who I mean, I got an email from her just yesterday. I miss you. And I'm like, because we haven't talked in a while. Super close relationship. And it pulled me up short because there was so much vehemence in it, in
Yeah.
this pushback. And so that is something to be aware of. There are folks out there who don't believe you should ever charge for anything craft related ever. And then there are folks who literally make their living just teaching classes and doing like online correspondence classes. That is their day and night hustle. So like there's a
Right.
whole spectrum out there.
Well, and I just joined, little do people know, I just joined OBOD, the Order of uh Ovates,
Bards and
Bards,
druids.
Ovates, and Druids, OBOD. And I joined them because I was looking for personal spiritual development, right?
Mm-hmm.
After you've been in the craft a long time, it's hard to get new ideas and not be doing the same thing and thinking the
Mm-hmm.
same things. You get in a rut. And so I joined OBOD. Now I pay OBOD, but I am getting back. I'm getting a bunch of these like individual uh, little books that are
Mm-hmm.
coming to me from England, or maybe from Wales. I think from Wales.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm paying, and I'm paying about $50 a month, but I'm getting 4 of these books a month, plus a book on whatever the Sabbath is, and then sometimes another book, depending on what they're getting into. And
Mm-hmm.
I have found it to be well worth my time. They also have one where you don't get the actual material, but I'm kind of when it comes to ritual, I want to hold something in my hand. So I went
Mm-hmm.
ahead and I paid to get the actual thing sent to me. But that's my choice. And I think OBOT is offering a service as much as it is
Mm-hmm.
also offering information on the craft, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're offering information on a very specific branch of the craft, which is Druidry, or at least their brand of Druidry. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I think you have to kind of weigh it. I don't think it's fair to ask teachers to go in debt to teach you the craft. I think that's unfair, which oddly enough leads to the next one, the right of compensation for goods and services. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have the right to financial security and to not be asked to do crazy things with your money, but I don't think it's fair to expect goods and services to be free. My husband makes beautiful athames, really
Mm-hmm.
does. They are works of art. But he has always charged. Now, what I have found is when he goes to a pagan festival with these, he will sometimes come back and go, "Well, I broke even." Because somebody came along. Clearly, the athame was meant for them. Clearly, he knew that. And so they couldn't pay the premium price. And he was like, well, I have this. I know what my break even point is, and it's this. So can you at least pay me that? And
Mm-hmm.
so he has done that. But again, those are circumstances that, we're the gray. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we can't say one way or the other here whether or not you should pay for the craft, because I think it depends on who you're paying. Why are you paying them that? What are you paying for? And what are you getting back? Right. I just know that if you're my student, directly my student in my coven, I would not charge you unless it is to offset some costs that I've incurred. But that's
Yep.
also part of the coven's bylaws. Like, we don't charge. It's part of
Mm-hmm.
the coven bylaws. So
Yeah.
um that is what I have to say about the right to compensation for goods and services. Nothing should be, no priest or priestess should ever turn to you and go, "Oh, that's a beautiful athlete. Could you just make me one? I just would like to have one."
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
a thing that happens. It
Yes.
does happen. Like I'm a maker. Like I do not work with metal the way Tony does just because I don't have the setup for it. And his work, so truly out there, folks. Tony makes the most beautiful athames I have ever seen. And they're not just beautiful, they're practical in a way that a
Hmm.
lot of ritual tools, a lot of times ritual tools, that whole industry's just been so merchandised. His
Yes.
stuff is solid. When you
Right.
feel them, they have the weight of potential. And
Hmm.
if you've been a practitioner for a while, you're recognizing immediately what I'm talking about. But it's a thing. Like I can make just about anything. I am like the hobby queen. Like I have a whole room in my house with like a wall of drawers just filled with all the various things that I do. Because Chris got tired of having to pick it up off the table, so he gave me a space. Um, but yeah, it was a thing. Um, but yeah, no, it's a thing. People will look at this beautiful thing that you have, and it's like, oh, I made that. Oh, can you make me one? I spent 3 weeks working on this. And that was 3 weeks of my life I will never get back. That was the sacrifice that I made to make this beautiful ritual tool thing. Like I have a large roundel, wooden roundel that is it's a pinnacle with Norse beast all through it, mapping to the elements, and I've hand carved it. And it's
Mm.
absolutely beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things I own. And I still look at it and I'm amazed I'm the one that made it. I worked on that for 2.5 years. My mom
Right.
looked at it and she's like, "Can you make me one of those?" Okay, well, that's a conversation. Your mom, I will think about that because that was a lot of time and energy. But then I've had other people look at it. Oh, will you make me one of those? I'm like, I've known you for 10 minutes
Mhm.
and I just told you how long I worked on it. So that's a
Right.
thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's the audacity. Sometimes it's the
It
audacity.
it is
Yeah.
the audacity. The other
Yes.
audacious thing that often happens in group is that sometimes seekers are required or coerced to have some spicy sleep with unwanted persons. And this
Yes.
is the fifth one, the right to sexual freedom. So nobody should require that. I have strong
Mhm.
feelings about this. I don't think that a coven or group should ever require someone to have spicy sleep in any way, shape, or form, because especially if they're a high priest or a priestess, because there's an, a the power dynamic is not the same. And now Tyler's laughing at me. What did I do? Why are you
It's not that.
laughing?
So it's the term spicy sleep. I'm now imagining someone having intimate relations and it's involving chili peppers and tamales. So like I will never be able to not see that. And I apologize. This is a me problem, not a you problem. But spicy sleep is now it's now a Taco Bell experience.
Yeah,
The
I picked that up
uh,
on the interwebs. Somebody else calls
yeah.
it spicy sleep, and I figure that's as good a term as any. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so there I feel I have very strong feelings about this particular thing.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody should ask. And I think when you do ask or require, you are setting yourself up for a lot of heartache on the back end. And I always tell
Hmm.
people the only group that I know who does spicy sleep as part of ritual is the Thelmites, the OTO. And they don't, you're not allowed to do that right for like 7 to 9 years or more. So you have to
Hmm.
be in the group, actively studying, part of the group for 7 to 9 years before you're allowed to even consider being part of that ritual. That to me is a pretty good rule of thumb,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you've learned by then to understand it as a raising of power versus intimate act. Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely. And there is a cost. Like I do want to add this. If you
Yes.
cross that line, remember as magical people, as people who understand the power of words, that is one of the laws and axioms, the power of words. Your word, your bond is a magical thing. It is part of the construct that is your magic. And when you give an oath to protect a student or to teach someone, there's a connection there. There's an energetic connection, a rope binding you to those people. I have had the acquaintance of someone who was a really solid practitioner and was in a relationship, took a student, and spicy tamale sleep happened with that student, crossed that line. When it got out, their reputation literally never recovered. Like, never recovered, because anytime somebody was looking at going to them to be a student, somebody in the community would inevitably be like, just be careful, be careful of your boundaries. If they cross those boundaries, get out. And it was, people were doing it because they cared and they wanted to make sure people were safe. But like at that point, you'd proven that your boundaries weren't 100% good. Or
Right.
there are ways around that. Like, I've had students where that old black magic popped up, and at that point you stop being their teacher. You help them find
That's
another
right.
teacher. If you're going to explore that side of your relationship, you always want to have power with, not power over. And sexual
Yes.
power, it's a very slippery slope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I love that. And I
Hmm.
agree with that. And it's also good. There are some what I call good time covens out there where everybody spicy sleeps with everybody else.
Hmm.
And that's not a good situation either, mostly because of the drama that incurs.
The drama.
So yeah, all the drama. So you don't want to
Hmm.
be involved in that either. Willow has a rule that you're not supposed to get involved with people in the group. What's funny about this rule is it has been broken now like 4 times, and all 4 of those groups of people are married to each other. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's something about and one of them when they came to us and said, "Okay, we're engaged now." We all were like, "Finally, we can talk about what the elephant in the room that you two have been
Hmm.
dating all this time." but
Yeah.
but it helps people take it much more seriously so that when
Hmm.
something does happen, it's not just a fling and it's not going to cause drama in the group. And but we've had people meet, marry, and have children in this group, and that's okay. We just didn't want you to pretend we're tender. That's what I always say. It's the tender
Yeah.
rule. I'm not The group isn't
Yeah.
tender. Don't come sleep through us. We don't want that.
Yeah, and the problem is for a lot of folks out there. I mean, our pagan religions are by and large born out of like fertility religions, like
Right.
more often than not. Um, yeah, for some pagans, every day is Beltane, and that
Mm-hmm.
I was warned that by my teacher literally on the ride to my first festival.
Yep.
And it's like for some pagans, every day is Beltane. And then sometimes you have pagan festival space that's sharing its space with the pirate convention that's in town. Um, that happened the second time I went to a festival, and I'm like, I'm supposed to think pure thoughts. They're flogging somebody over there, and yeah, I was very young at the time.
Oh, that type of pirate. I
That type
understand.
of pirate, nobody warned me. They
That,
didn't warn
yes.
me. I had to learn what little colored bands meant as far as consent. I was so
Oh,
young. I was
yes.
innocent. I was not innocent after that weekend. No, I was
I
not.
bet you were
Mm-mm.
not.
I had learned, my eyes had been opened. I can't hear the sound of leather on skin, even with a belt, without just flashing back to that moment. I don't actually hear leather on skin. Ignore that. That's Edit that out, Dia. That shouldn't have been there. I
Oh
wasn't
no, that's a
happy.
TikTok if ever I heard one.
I despise you. Betrayal, perfidy. I'm gonna hear about this one from my mom too. It's like, Kyler, what have you been
um,
getting up to, son?
so the right to physical well-being is number 6. You shouldn't be coerced to submit to any form of physical injury. That's pretty
Hmm.
given. The right to abide by the law. Nobody should ask you to break the law, right?
Correct.
This is not a group that paganism is not a group that wants to break the law, right?
Right.
There is room here for social um, and
Resistance.
resistance, right?
Yeah.
But and by and large, nobody should
Hmm.
ask you to steal or
Yeah.
commit other acts of of horridness.
Yeah. Yeah. Try not to be a butthead. That's my general rule. Like
Yep.
if you can live your life in such a way that Mr. Rogers would be proud of you, you've accomplished a good thing.
Yep.
There is something I wanted to toss in here, Dia, because I've seen this used as a way of like wiggling around those a couple of times.
Mm,
For those who have ever heard of Wicca, one of the big phrases is perfect love and perfect trust.
mm,
So this word has a lot of different meanings, a lot of different applications. But I was very fortunate to have Poppy, my very first mentor, kind of break this one down in a particular way. Perfect love and perfect trust is a concept, it's a verb, and it's a goal.
mm.
So if there are some initiatory rites that are designed to bring you into a liminal space, if you have perfect love and perfect trust with your group, you're not afraid. Like you know when you feel safe. Again, listen to your internal voice, because when you get to that kind of perfect love and perfect trust as an operative level, those people would never dream of hurting you. They would never want to push you to a place where you felt unsafe. And if you do feel unsafe, say something. Like say something, advocate for yourself, because you should never feel unsafe. Just
I
my
agree.
little caveat on it.
Number 8 is the right to consistency. Seekers have the right to expect consistent practice from the teacher group. And this is a big one. A lot of charismatic people are also erratic people. And it's something that as a teacher, I have tried to strive for.
Mhm.
And it can be hard, right? You get tired. But I always keep in mind that my group expects 8 Sabbaths, and that's what I need to provide. And they expect as many moons as we can get together. We don't always do a moon,
Mhm.
um, but it's always offered. And there have been times when it's canceled, but as consistent as I can be.
Mhm.
So that has been a thing, and that's the reason it's in here is because lots of charismatic leaders tend to also be erratic people that have maybe some ego issues. Just saying.
Ego in the craft,
Yeah,
Dia.
I know.
That's so out of pocket. I don't recognize. What? No. Is it me? Am I the drama? I'm not the drama. Am I the drama? No, it's a thing. Like it's a thing. I
Yep.
have found the best priesthood, if they have a really good working partner, charismatic people work best when they have a grounded anchoring personality to keep them consistent.
Yep.
I am so much more effective as an adult because I have a Chris. He
Right.
keeps he keeps me on time. He helps me focus. Like I don't know how Dia puts up with me on this podcast because Chris isn't in the room with me right now telling me to shut up. So
um, so that's why the right to consistency is on this list. The right to separation without impunity is number 9, meaning you can leave a group and they shouldn't come after you because you left, right? It also,
Mhm.
though, depends on how you leave, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Recently, we've had somebody leave Willow, and I don't have a lot of respect for this person in general, but I respected how they left Willow. They came to me, they said, I'm leaving. I said, okay, I will do the ceremony. And in our group, there's a ceremony that I do personally to release them. And so I did the ceremony, wished them all
Mhm.
the best as they went on their way. And I had a lot of respect for that. Um, if you go and you're vague booking people and um, you know, generally pitching a fit for no reason other than to be a jerk, um,
Mhm.
your impunity is over.
Yeah.
it, you know what I mean? You have thus earned what you get, right? Remember, they are witches that you're dealing with, and maybe you don't do that. Maybe you just leave and say, everybody go and be at peace, and let there be peace between us, and that's it, and just be
Mhm.
done with it. The only
Yeah.
exception I ever give that is if I find out that someone's a predator, and
Oh yeah.
and then all
Yeah.
bets are off. I will tell anybody who will listen. Um, I will, because there's too much quiet when it comes to that in the craft. Why is that funny? You
Absolutely.
don't think the
No, no.
funniest things are funny?
Yes, okay. And it's not because of the concept themselves. It was because when you said that, I heard all bits are off. And
Oh,
considering what is filled in most classic grimoires, yes, if you are a predator and you attack someone in our community, your bits may come off eventually, depending on what they send your way. So yeah. I wasn't laughing at predators, guys. They're nothing to laugh about, but bits falling off can be funny. Remind me to tell you the story about somebody's toe flying off once.
okay.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
so random.
that- that's so random. So
It's
the
so
last
random.
one is the right to be at peace with one's conscience. So you shouldn't be asked to do things that you aren't comfortable with. That's the bottom line. And if you are, then you need to find another place to be. And there are always other groups out there. Don't, you know,
Hmm.
vet a group, go to the group a couple of times. I had a priest one time tell me that it takes a year for the crazy to come out. I think that's
Oh,
about
yeah.
that's about right. Yeah.
Hmm.
So when you're with a group, give yourself a year and say, okay, if after a year, then I'll join, as long as I don't see crazy, right?
Hmm.
And just keep that in mind. And not all the best covens are the biggest covens, just for the record, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
People,
Mega churches are not a
mega
happy
churches
place.
are not necessarily the greatest place to go worship, and neither is, the big coven. You
Hmm.
might want to look for a smaller group that is
Hmm.
more intimate and a little less concerned with numbers and more concerned with
Hmm.
other things.
Yeah.
They're not
Oh,
concerned about how many people came to their last event.
hmm.
They're more concerned about, did that event go well, and did it have an impact on the people who
Hmm.
attended. That's what they're concerned about.
Hmm. Well, I mean, like I live in Seattle and like 99.99999% of the population here are raging introverts. So if you try to take somebody to their first public ritual and there's 10,000 people there, they're going to meet and then go run and hide in the trunk until everything is over. So
Right.
like, yeah, smaller groups offer some really awesome intimate connections. There's one thing I wanted to toss out, Dia. So
Mhm.
the right of continuity. So
Mm,
I operate on that one. I call that the right of time equity.
mm,
I've changed the name of it. It used to be the right to not have your time wasted,
mhm,
and that goes for teachers as well as students.
mhm,
I am somebody who has been in my life accused of being overly generous with my time. If you
mhm.
are somebody who shows an interest, if you are somebody who, you start out strong and then either your interest or maybe you're bad at time management, whatever. If you continually don't do the work, but you still want to have class, you want to get together, but it's really just to talk about what's going on in your life and all that, that's fine. We can go have tea. That's not the same thing as craft classes.
Right.
That's not the same thing necessarily as lessons. Your teacher's time is valuable, so come prepared. Teachers, your students' time is valuable. They may be working two jobs. Come prepared. And if you aren't in a place, reschedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that is the Seeker's Bill of Rights. I think it's
Hmm.
really great. You can look that up on the interwebs, I am sure. I appreciate that this guy put it together for us all those years ago, and I
Hmm.
appreciate how well it's worn over the years. It's still true for me. I still give it out when I teach a newbie class at a group event or something. Um, but the problem we're having today that intersects with this is that the world we know it is on fire.
Mm.
Tyler sent me a list of things that have happened in the world news in less than the past 48 hours,
70,
and
72 hours for
72
the
hours.
Chicago thing now, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 48
So, I mean,
yesterday, but yeah.
there's just crazy, crazy things going on in this
Hmm.
world right now. And it's disheartening, and it's scary. People, I think,
Hmm.
especially minority groups, are getting scared, and they're getting scared to be identified as part of a minority group because they're worried, with justifiably good reason, that our government might use the FBI, if you're in a red state, the state bureau of investigation against you. And
Hmm.
it makes it feel like it's really dangerous. And I think the thing to remind yourself is you don't have to. We have the plead the fifth for a reason, right? You don't have to tell anybody what you do in your own home.
Mm-hmm.
Now they can ask, doesn't require you to say anything.
Right.
And that's one thing that you need to remember. And I've said it before on this podcast, don't lie, hedge.
Mm-hmm.
And so, saying things like, because I get asked, you're crafty Dia, why are you crafty Dia? I'm like, well, I crochet, I'm crafty.
Mm-hmm.
Is it also because I'm a witch? Yes. But do I bring
Yeah.
that up? Not necessarily. No. So don't lie, hedge. Just
Mm-hmm.
be general. I think freedom of religion is important for everyone, regardless of their religion,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And to kind of tie into that, one of the reasons why now is so scary for pagans is, or it could potentially be very scary for pagans. When we look back over the Supreme Court decisions of the last few years, yeah, I know, God, it's everything I can do not to just go down rant mountain face first. But it is important to understand how the law can be used against you, because I'm old enough and he is old enough to remember a time when, if you were having a custody battle in the state of Texas or Georgia or
Yep.
Alabama, and your husband or your wife said they're a witch, they practice the occult and they do all of that, you would not get custody of your children. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a thing. Like, adultery in a marriage would not cost you custody the same way having that leveled at you. We've come a long way in the last 30 or 40 years. And the reason why now is so scary is because, as Dia said, you have the right to keep your business your business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that right, though it is not enumerated in the Constitution, was the underpinning of Roe v. Wade. That was the underpinning of Obergefell. All of the social movements, the social progress we've made in the last half century was underpinned by the right to privacy. And this Supreme Court and this administration, they don't recognize that. When you look at a very conservative view of the Constitution, they don't, because it's not enumerated, it's not something that should be part of their legal consideration. So that is something to bear in mind. You do have the right to plead the fifth. That is an enumerated right. They may not respect it in the way that they have in years past. And so it's a good idea to remember, most of our practices were secret for a very long time, and there is power and safety in secrecy. Now, I am not telling you to roll up your pride flags and everything else. I am saying exercise an element of caution, because the safety that existed in this country, the freedom that existed in this country, that is directly what's under attack. And as Michael says, which you guys have not gotten to hear the very wise words of Michael Hughes, one of my all-time new favorite people. I'm so happy that he had a good time with us and wants to come back and play. But don't let them take your joy. But you may
Mm-hmm.
not need to broadcast your joy in like neon and get their attention.
Right.
Everybody I work with knows that I am an interfaith minister. They know that I'm an
Right.
interfaith minister. They do not know that I am pagan priesthood. They know that I can
Right.
perform weddings and that I've done that as
Right.
a side hustle. They don't need to know all the extra.
Right.
That's not their business. And I'm solid enough in my own practice. I don't need to broadcast that. I don't need the attention of that. I'm happy with my practice. I sometimes equate it to born again Christians, not to point the finger too much at them, but like
Mm-hmm.
they find that joy, they have to tell everybody about it. Same thing in
Right.
the craft. When you find that freedom, you find a place of belonging, you want to share it with everybody. Step with caution, step with care, because it's not as safe as it used to be.
No, it's not. And I think that that is where having, saying I am a interfaith minister, I am and I'm in an interfaith church, which is not a
Mm-hmm.
lie. I am, my churches, I used to say this all the time, and this is a phrase you can steal from me. I'm in a seed church. A seed church is a small group of people that meet because they're establishing a church,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a very Christian term to say I am a seed church. So I I would say that. Where's your church? Oh, it's just a seed church. It's,
Mm-hmm.
just a few of us. It's nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and then change the subject,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and try to be cognizant of how you're representing yourself, right? And saying things like I believe in all faiths, right?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't gotten to the historical thing. And we haven't talked about the role of the summoner, which is one of the things you specifically said you wanted to talk about.
Yes. So I will try to condense as much of that down as possible because I mean there are ways it's not super secret information. Um, so in previous decades, we're not going to say centuries because Wicca's not been around for centuries and all that. There there was a very real fear. Like remember that Wicca was born in towards the end of Victorian era. It was in the early 1930s or whatever when it really
Right.
started to
30s
coalesce.
and
But
40s.
30s and 40s. But a lot of the practices of that came out of like the Golden Dawn and Telema
Hmm.
and all that other. Um, at that time, if you were found to be an occult practitioner, it would have serious social repercussions. So, by the time that Gardner got around to creating and actually forming his template and his structure, and he was initiating people, an interesting thing that we call World War II was happening. And the British Isles were very much under the threat of active invasion. So Wicca is built to be secret. Like their entire structure is built around a series of practices of secrecy. And if you spend a little time on the internet, they've got a whole list of things of their rules that you can look at. But even the coven structure of traditional Wiccan groups is built almost like an insurgency cell. And he built it that way because if Hitler took over the British Isles, there would be built in resistance cells in the countryside, all throughout the countryside. And by the 40s, Wicca had spread all over the UK, right? So, I mean, the in the this system, there was only one person, and it wasn't the priest or the priestess who knew who the people in that community were, and that was the summoner. So, in traditional Wiccan groups, or Brit trad groups, you have the role of a summoner, and he's the person who bangs the stick and calls everybody together and lays the charge that says, "Okay, we're about to go into this space. Prepare yourself." He's also the protection for the priestess because the priestess is the one. She's got the book, she's got the knowledge, she's got the training, all that. She's the one who would draw down all of that. And so the summoner's primary job, first he keeps watch, he makes sure that everybody in the circle is okay. If somebody kind of, as I call it, getting slain in the pagan spirit, like they get woozy, or they same as with any ecstatic experience, he's there, trained in first aid, all that, can let people in and out of the circle. But his other job was, if, as one of my teachers used to say it, if the bikers come over the hill, he gets the priestess away. That's his job. Um, it's one of those traditional roles. Now, part of that whole like Wiccan culture myth thing, and when I use the term Wiccan culture myth, every community has a culture myth. I don't mean it as it's not real. I mean it the community culture myth is a thing. It's a term in anthropology. Um, this person also knew one or two people in the surrounding covens, and he was their point of communication. And if somebody was ever found by the witch hunters or something like that, part of this myth was he was the person who either got them out of jail or brought them the vial of poison that would make their passing peaceful. And so that was the role of the summoner. So this is kind of baked into the secrecy of the craft from the very beginning. So a lot of the things that we do, we don't record during rituals. We don't have our phones out. Like you don't want electronics, personal electronics in ritual generally anyway. That they can do wonky things, but you don't record and you don't name coven mates out and about in general communication because they may not be in a place and you never know how your social circles may accidentally overlap. It could be a surprisingly few degrees of separation. The other thing is there are some groups who do not do the whole theatricality of things. Personally, I like robes. I sew. I'm really creative. I love embroidery. But cowled robes, like cowled hoods, they were also practical. If you don't want someone to see your face, you would wear a hooded robe. And in my particular case, I actually had somebody who would come to our gatherings who was very high up at one of the state universities in the South, a major, exceedingly prominent Southern university, and he was very high up in that administrative hierarchy. If it had ever gotten out, he would have lost his job. He would have lost a six-figure job, and he would probably not have been able to work in any kind of mainstream academia again. So there's a lot of that. So that is my attempt to condense down and not go on an historical rant.
So one of the things I'm going to say, so a couple of things. If you Google me, you will quickly discover that I have allowed cameras in circle. One of the things I will point out is that you can't distinguish who the people in that circle are. Mm-hmm. So what you see is usually from the shoulder down or just the feet. You don't see the people doing the ritual. The people who end up on camera all volunteered. None of them were voluntold. They all volunteered. And this was done not for what I call reality TV. This was a true documentary that was done by Atlanta Interfaith Broadcasting, who their mission is to go out and take documented information about different groups. And we allowed them to come into Willow and document paganism. And I don't think we were the only one. There is another group that is also in that group, but it was very circumspect. Nobody made any money off of that. It was, just the thing that we did. And I would really encourage you to consider, when you are thinking about those things, consider how it can be used against you and whether or not you're working with someone you trust. Because I really trusted the producer. And when I told her you cannot show people's faces, she was like, okay. Like, that was that. And she held to her word. And, that was never, those things, identifiers were never released unless it was one of the people who had agreed to be a face. So I'm going to say that about cameras, just for the record. But Willow is an open group as well. And we've always been open. That said, Willow has also stopped advertising because of the day and age we're in. So I used to go on Facebook and go, this is an event. You can come to this event. I don't do that anymore. If you come to Willow now, you have to find me. Now, if you find me, I will respond. I will see that you get an invite. I will vet you. But, I don't just not respond. A lot of groups are not responding. And I know this because a lot of people have ended up in Willow because other groups wouldn't respond to them. So there is a circumspect that's happening in these groups, and they're being very careful now in a way that they haven't in the past. So that's what I have to say about that as well. Also, in our group, the summoner's job is to deal with the police. That's the summoner's job. And the priest's job. In the way that we deal with this is if the fire department, let's say we're burning something and the fire department gets called, it's the priest and the summoner who go out and meet that. and explain what's happening, and explain, try to come to some kind of understanding.
Hmm.
One of the things that I really encourage you to do is, if you do have a group, go find the community officer. There's always this officer whose job is to interact with the community and talk to the community. And find the community officer and go, hey, can you come to my place or wherever it is you worship? And I'd like to talk to you about what's happening at this location. And
Hmm.
put yourself on the map in a good way with the police before the police show up for because the neighbors called or whatever the reason is, right? Um, and then the other thing I can encourage, just from my experience with Willow, is, don't block your neighbor's driveway. Like,
Oh,
have some
yeah,
respect,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
it's okay to have a
Consideration.
bunch of
Yeah.
people over, but be sure you're following the laws, and you're not being inconsiderate of your neighbors, and you're not causing them distress, because if you cause them distress, then they're going to call the police, and then you're going to have distress.
Hmm.
So it's better to be kind of proactive, and be a good neighbor, and not
Hmm.
have those things. So those are some of the things that I would recommend if you have a group specifically. But that community officer one, the guy came out, and he actually did they'll for free do they did a security assessment, and made some security suggestions that we actually are finally getting around to doing, um, the about our particular location where our ritual circle was, and things like that. And and I haven't forgotten that. I haven't forgotten the things he suggested, and now we're finally going to implement some of those, just so that we can feel a little safer, than maybe we have in the past. But having a good relationship with the police and being able to say, this is the officer's name that I've already talked to in your department, you know. And we are fortunate. I mean, Willow, I think, is very fortunate because we live in a blue county in a red state.
Hmm.
So, and I mean blue, it is blue here.
Yes.
And so you also kind of have to think about where you're at, and how out you want to be. I don't know
Yeah.
that I would be this out in other counties, sincerely.
Hmm.
This county is a different thing. It's just totally different than
Hmm.
than some of the other counties in my state. So you have to think about that too.
Yeah.
Heavy topic.
I, it is a heavy topic. It is, and it sucks that we have to talk about it. Like, in my life, I've seen so many steps forward. I have, and I had gotten to a point where I had relaxed. I'd relaxed. Like, I'd
Mhm.
gotten, maybe you can call it complacency, but I'd gotten relaxed. I'd gotten comfortable. Um, I felt like I could have a conversation about what I do with just about anybody, even people I
Yeah.
work with, even with people I politically disagreed with. Now, I'm fortunate. I live in Seattle. People here, West Coasters, tend to be, at least in the metropolitan areas, way less judgmental. And I mean, Seattle and like the Portland area, we're known for our weird. We're proud of our weird. We let our freak flags fly with gusto and panache. It took me so long to be able to say that phrase without like messing it up, because the Southern tongue is not designed to have that combination of vowels and consonants together. But it was, it feels like an old acquaintance that you don't particularly like has just decided to move into your house again. Um, but that isn't to say that these days are going to stay. That's the one thing that I will say through all of this. This is not the forever truth. This is not the fiction of the Handmaid's Tale. Every
Right.
overreach, every step into our personal freedoms is being met. We are not a few scattered groups here and there that it is easy to vilify and subjugate and oppress. The US Census recognizes, and I'm not sure if we finally hit the tipping point, but there are more actual practicing pagans in this country now than there are practicers of Judaism. Not
Right.
Christianity and Islam, but Judaism. We are now, we're everywhere. And it is very, very difficult to oppress literally millions of people. So walk with care, but also understand you're not alone. No matter how bad it gets, there's a lot more people who disagree with what's going on right now than agree with it. And that means you're
Right.
not alone. So build your
And if
communities. Yeah.
Yeah, build your communities and rely on community structures that already exist. Lady Liberty League
Hmm.
already exists. Lady Liberty League is the reason why pinnacles are on the tombstones of soldiers who have fallen.
Hmm.
Um, that's why, because of Lady Liberty League and Selena Fox's work. And so just understand that there are organizations out there who can champion you if you truly are finding yourself in that kind of a battle, or can at least give you some good information and some good advice.
Hmm.
So Lady Liberty League is something you should know about and be aware of it, that it does exist. And my resiliency corner, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but um, I have two candles going in the background specifically because we need to be lights in the darkness. We need to hold out that a bunch of us lighting one candle can make a bonfire that beats back this darkness. And
Hmm.
so that's why I have candles lit today. And I hope you guys will remember that and think about that and try to be at least a light in the little sphere of influence you have, remembering that when we drop a petal into a lake, the ripples get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Hmm.
And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be a light in the darkness that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes on. So that's my resiliency corner. Heather, what do you
Hmm.
have to say today?
So mine is born out of my probable over connection with current events. My suggestion for Resiliency Corner is find out basic information on your on your closest chapter of the ACLU.
Mm,
Find out, if you ever need to use their services, what's a good contact number? Maybe save it in your phone. You'll probably never need it. You'll almost assuredly you'll probably never need it, but you'll have it. And then after you've kind of prepared yourself in that way, look into, what services exist if something does happen in your world. Um, but then also go out and find a headline that disturbs you. Dig into it. One of the things that I've discovered recently, as bad as things are, the bad sensational headlines, that's what's swamping us. That's what's flooding our information spaces. Almost all of them have a flip side to that that is not being reported. Like, sadly, we can't trust internet news. You have to spend some time actually investigating what good is happening in the world because it's not delivered to you on the silver platter that all the bad is. And there is good happening literally everywhere. So, ironically, normally I would say disconnect and, connect with yourself. But right now, you need that positive ammunition to push back some of that negative, or at least some people do. And so if you spend some time looking for the good things, even if you just find some cat videos on TikTok, something that puts a smile on your face and reminds you there are so many good people in this world. I'm addicted to animal videos, like dogs knocking people over on TikTok. That's my joy. It's my happy space. I'm
okay,
very
so
simple.
I have to send you a TikTok that I saw today that had me laughing out loud. It was a possum eating candy out of a bowl of Halloween candy on the porch. And beside it is one of those jump scare things, and it goes off, and that possum was on the bowl. And it's the funniest thing I've seen in a long time. Is that possum reacting to the jump scare? Oh my god, it was hilarious. The other thing I want to say is if you need to want to ingest your news in small bites with someone that you trust,
Mhm.
Under the Desk News on YouTube is a really, really great one. Under the Desk News. It's done by a wonderful woman who kind of she's won some awards for her reporting. She's really, really, really good. And if you see one of her videos and it has a banana on it, that's good news only. So if you see that she's wearing a shirt that has bananas all over it, you can listen to that and be assured that it's going to be uplifting, because she does that every week. She has wears the banana shirt and gives good news. So just a little aside that I thought of. All right. Well, you guys, we will try to see you next time. And I hope we are all safe and that you have a magical day. Blessed be.
Hail and farewell.
Thank you for listening to Urban Unwitches. Please reach co-host Kyler Petrie and Rev Dia at urbanunwitches@gmail.com. That's urbanunwitches@gmail.com to suggest topics for shows or comment on past episodes. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches. Follow us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches to watch all episodes. And listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. Rev Dia is a witch for hire as an officiant, life coach, astrologer, geomancer, and medium, and can be reached at www.revdia.net. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Circle Podcast, presented by Circle Sanctuary, and produced for all who follow nature-centered paths. Join us throughout the week for various programming connecting with the community around the world. Please don't forget to watch for updates on the Circle Sanctuary website at www.circlesanctuary.org. Follow us on Facebook at Facebook/Circle Podcasts. We can also be found on your favorite podcast hosting sites, such as iTunes, Spotify, and others. Until next time, many blessings.